I think it's a really cool looking sculpture, and I think it's some interesting history behind it. It was originally commissioned for a corporate headquarters in Birmingham, Alabama, for like a sports medicine facility.
Mm-hmm.
But when they shut that place down, they moved it to they moved it to Illinois.
You said they, and then anyway.
But oh my God.
It therefore seems to me most important that you, the people of the state of Illinois, should know your university. Is it doing what you want it to do as the people's university? You are the owners, and your decision is final. Learning and labor. For the people and by the people. The people's university.
I don't know. If it like starts doing things. Okay, let's just get started.
We got this.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Learning and Labor podcast. Today, we're joining you from a wonderful self-use media studio in the UIUC library, and I'm not alone, as you can see if you're watching the video version of this. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Justin, non-binary friend of the podcast, and looking forward to rating some statues today.
Yes, and my name is Niko Johnson Fuller. For those who don't know, use he, him pronouns, and I'm the host of this podcast. So why don't we just go ahead and jump right into it? We have one statue up here right now, but we've got a whole tier list of statues that we're going to rate today. For some weird reasons, the tier list maker turned some of them sideways. So if you are watching this video as a video and you notice that, I don't know why. But let's talk a little bit about what we're actually putting on this tier list, the criteria, which is a statue. I don't know if this is some sort of technical definition, but I wanted to pick things that aim to depict a person, an animal, or some sort of object somewhat realistically or like in a recognizable way. So didn't include certain abstract pieces of art on campus. Most of them are on the campus of UIUC. Some of them are off campus though, and this is just kind of like a random collection. There's a lot I didn't include, just because we couldn't rate every single one. And also just like time constraints. There were some that I ran into while I was walking around campus when I was preparing for this. And I was like, oh, I should probably add that. But then some I was like, okay, I can't actually add everything. And some of them are grouped together if they're similar or if they're in a collection or something like that. Okay, so do you want to talk a little bit about how we're going to rate these statues? What our criteria are?
Sure. So to rate all the statues you guys are going to see, or that we're going to see and describe to you guys today, we're going to be rating them on their appearance, their politics, and or the messaging that goes behind the statue and their creator's intention, and the significance and location, and that's everything. Because obviously, something like Alma Mater is a lot more iconic than just, some random statue they threw in Follinger or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And this isn't like a hard and fast, like we're going to pick a number for all these categories. We're just going to kind of vibe it out, but we're going to try to touch on these points for every statue. All right. So with that being said, we kind of spoiled this already, but we are going to start with the most famous statue on the UIUC campus, Alma Mater, which was sculpted by Lorado Taft. I don't know if that's how you actually say his name. So let's start with appearance. Justin, would you be able to describe Alma Mater for our audio listeners and just, for those who want a more in-depth analysis here?
Yeah, I mean, for those of you that haven't seen it, it is perhaps the greatest piece of iconography related to the university, at least in terms of statues.
Definitely.
It is right at the corner of Green and Wright, which, I mean, if you've been there, you know just how busy that can be. And so what you're going to be looking at is the figures of learning and labor standing behind a figure which represents the university, with her arms stretched out towards all those who come through to learn and to labor.
Yeah, absolutely. So the main statue representing Alma Mater, the university as a whole, more broadly, and then learning and labor from the motto of the university. They didn't name it after that for the podcast, unfortunately. Maybe one day people will think that. But just like for some background, this was put up in 1929. It had some inscriptions on it in terms of like the history and stuff like that. To thy happy children of the future, those of the past, send greetings, which I think is, a nice sentiment. And then there's also her children arise up and call her blessed, Proverbs 31:28. So a quote from the Bible there, which is just kind of like saying that people who go to the university think it's cool. At least that's my interpretation.
Sure.
Okay, so let's do some rating here. I think the appearance wise, Alma Mater is pretty good. I mean, it's like a very well made statue. It's been renovated, so they've kept up a lot of the quality of the statue, and I would give it I would say it's pretty good in terms of appearance. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it does show its age a little bit. I mean, especially with the image right here, you can see it's got like a little bit of scraping and whatever, but also, I mean, it's such a popular tourist spot. Like, people will climb it, get their pictures there. A lot of, student tours start there. And I think overall, considering that, its condition's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I agree. And apparently, I didn't track down the source on this, but there is at least a claim, it's on Wikipedia, that okay, the camera just moves sometimes. Sorry. I'm gonna maybe turn that off. I believe I was saying was that Alma Mater was allegedly made for climbing on, which I think is pretty cool and kind of just doesn't really fit in neatly into one of our categories, but it's just kind of like a cool part of it. And so I agree. Appearance is pretty good. Politics and our message, it's like a pretty generic, appreciative of the university and the university's values. But I mean, it's not nothing bad, nothing good, nothing like revolutionary or amazing or anything. But I think it's a pretty, well-spirited, just trying to be welcoming and be like a cool thing for the campus. Yeah,
I mean, when it comes to advertising, hey, you should come to the U of I, it's way better than a billboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Although that will there's one thing to consider, which is the fact that I thought that this is interesting. I think it was the 70s when they moved Alma Mater from Fullinger to where it is today, there was some controversy around it. The Daily Illini thought it was a commercial debasement of Alma Mater, which I get what they were coming from because it used to be in a more secluded location. But I actually think in some ways it being more prominent is kind of a cool thing because there's a lot of protests and public actions that happen at Alma Mater, and that allows it to be more more attention to be drawn to that area because it is by these larger streets. Now, I wish those streets were more pedestrianized and stuff like that, but that's kind of a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So I'm honestly okay with the location. And honestly, I have a hard time saying, in terms of significance, Alma Mater is obviously number one, and I have a hard time putting Alma Mater anywhere but S tier, frankly.
I agree. I couldn't agree more, really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's so fundamentally tied to the image of the university that for all the reasons you stated, just between protests and just the way that it advertises the university, it's got to be there. It's that important.
Absolutely. And if we do disagree, which we might disagree later on, we can always split the difference, so to speak. But okay, so our next statue is Animal Dignity, or I guess this is a collection of statues. So this is probably a little bit lesser known one, but there's these kind of nice depictions of animals outside of the animal sciences lab, or on the walls of the animal sciences laboratory on campus. And I don't know, Justin, do you want to give folks an idea of what kind of animals you're getting to see here?
I mean, you're seeing a crane, a pig, some various trees, a cute little horsey, what appears to be some fighting figures, maybe some horses at play as well, who knows? But I mean, this is pretty close to the College of Aces, looking pretty nice, looking pretty snazzy.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's it's not like a literal depiction of the animals. It's a slightly, stylized, but I think it's really, I think it's pretty. And
it's got a good texture to it, you know what
yes,
I mean?
Yes.
Even though it looks like they're probably just held on in a way that makes them look two-dimensional almost. The way that the metal work is done just gives it
it is kind of two-dimensional, so I was it was really a sculpture or a statue, but I think I wanted to include it, and its message is kind of depicting the grace animals have and deserve, which I think is sweet. In terms of its prominence and location, you might see it on campus, you might not walk by it ever.
Depends on what your major is, really.
Yeah. You probably will walk by it at least once. Well, you might not notice it ever. I personally would give this maybe an A or a B tier. I don't know where you would put it.
I'd honestly just have to put it in B tier just
That's
because
fair.
of location. I do think it's really beautiful and well done, but I also think it's just out of the way.
I'm fine with B. It's it's cool, but it's not up there, you know. And yeah, so here's what we're looking at so far. And next we have perhaps the most
the best statue.
an animal statue actually, which is the cow statue, which is actually technically called the Brodus White Sox, is the name of the cow that it's depicting. Justin, would you be able to describe this statue?
Yeah, I mean, it's depicting a prized specimen of cattle from like 100 years ago. I mean, it does a pretty good job. It's got the texture down right.
It has like a big bump on it, I will say.
Yeah.
It's like below its throat, like its chest is like kind of sticking out a lot. Which, I mean, I don't know anything about cow anatomy, what exactly is going on there, but it is definitely something you notice.
Yeah, it's certainly a beefy boy. I can see why they want to, dedicate a statue to it.
Now, despite what the thumbnail of this video might say, I don't think this is like a horrible statue or anything. It's like okay. It's like, a prize-winning steer from 100 years ago, and they put it by the stock pavilion. It has like some relevance to the agriculture and everything, but it's not like that great to look at. It is just literally just a cow. So I'm thinking like a C tier maybe for this. I don't know if you want to go any harsher than that.
I mean, I'd put it in A because I love cows.
Oh, you put it in
C
A.
for cow is worth it.
Okay, we can split the difference if you want, but
no, I mean, to be honest, I respect the C just because I mean, obviously I'd rather like go to a petting zoo and see a cow than like see a metal one. You know what I mean? And also like it's just a cheap knockoff of the bull that's in Chicago. Come on.
That's actually a good point. I didn't think about that, but yeah. Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on then to the next item, which is the Diana Fountain, which is by the Illini Union. There's actually, I guess, multiple sculptures here, or statues here throughout the whole fountain. Justin, would you want to tell folks what we're looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a statue of Diana, which is, I believe, goddess of the hunt in Roman mythology. Just on a beautiful fountain. I mean, it's got that neoclassical sort of look to it with three sculptures that are off to the side of it. Within the fountain. I mean, I think pretty much everybody's walked by that. Again, it's really, really close to the alma mater.
Yes.
Exceptionally beautiful shade of green.
Yeah, and I don't have a whole lot of historical background on this one. It was sculpted by a famed Swedish sculptor, apparently, Carl Millet, I don't know how you'd say that in Swedish, but given to the university by Time Inc. In the 1920s, and it's right by the Illini Union. Message and wise, I mean, it's just I don't even know exactly, but it's just kind of I feel like it's just kind of meant to look cool, and I think it does look pretty cool.
It's an awesome looking fountain.
I think it's and a pretty iconic fountain, and just it's a nice area by the Union that you can just kind of chill outside at. I would give this probably an A tier.
Yeah,
personally.
I'm thinking A tier as well. I think like just I mean, we don't really have many other like Roman-esque stuff like that on campus, and I think if we did have to have one thing, this being the thing is pretty good.
All right, so that one is A tier. All right, next we got some interesting men here. We got Dick and Red. So to be specific, this is Dick Butkus and Red Grange, which are two statues of football players. You want to...
Yeah, so Dick Butkus, linebacker, and Red Grange was a halfback. Both of them statues have pretty close to the football field, Memorial Stadium. One of them's the Dick Butkus one's right outside their training complex, and then the Red Grange one is right outside the stadium itself. Both of them, I mean, honor like a great sporting legacy here. Obviously, recently our schools had a lot more success with basketball and stuff like that. But these two guys were, I mean, not just like good for the Fighting Illini, but I mean, people that ended up in the Hall of Fame. So it makes sense that they put a statue for them here.
Yeah, I think it's and I think the statues themselves look pretty solid. I mean, they're not. I think that I probably prefer the Red Grange one just because it's kind of like in a cooler location. Not that I would see it that much walking by, but just like seeing photos of it like with the stadium behind it. Where the other one is like you will see more often, but I decided to group these together just because like they're relatively similar. I don't have a whole lot to say about American football. But I think that these are like okay statues. They're pretty. They do the job well. One interesting thing I noticed. Apparently the Butkus statue, like the person who's gonna sculpt it asked Dick Butkus like what face he wanted to make in the sculpture, And apparently Dick said, "How about this?" and made a clenched face expression. And then they snapped a photo, and then that's the photo he's making. So if you can see his face, it's apparently clenched, which is kind of funny.
I think that's awesome.
I don't know, Justin, where are you feeling for this on the tier list?
I'm thinking it's got to be a B or an A tier. I mean, I really think that, like, just, like, even if you don't know much about, like, football or anything like that, the statues are both well done. Specifically, the Red Grange one, like you pointed out, that's a beautiful-looking statue.
Okay, I'm inclined to go B, personally, just to be a sports hater for the moment. The last time the U of I had any good football players. Okay, moving on, we have the Fountain of Creation. So this is a few different statues. Behind Fullinger, we have these fellas. It's kind of cut off here, I realize, but it looks pretty much the same as this one. And then
the ones by the main library.
Yeah, the other statues by the main library.
You gotta love how even in that picture the construction's still going on.
Yeah, I was gonna take like another photo, but I thought it was kind of funny to have the construction there.
Perfect,
so.
honestly.
They're according to the Alumni Association, they're 4 splendid limestone nudes from the uncompleted Fountain of Creation, which was planned as part of the Fountain of Time. And this is also sculpted by Laredo Taft, who sculpted Alma Mater, and it was supposed to be part of like a big collection of statues that was going to be in Chicago, but it ended up never being finished. So they decided to, we'll give it to the University of Illinois instead, I guess. And it's supposed to be like mythical kind of inspiration. It says Noah-like Greek myth, so that's like, taking inspiration from biblical and from Greek mythology apparently. And it depicts the moment when the bones of Mother Earth are changing into men and women who materialize in the aftermath of a flood, which I guess it does. Yeah, I honestly like this one a lot. I think it's like very like, you walk by it and you're like, oh, that's kind of weird, which I think is kind of fun and more interesting than just like, a statue of a dude or something.
Yeah, totally.
Plenty of good statues of dudes out there, but like if that's like kind of the most boring generic kind of statue, and this is like a little interesting. It's like art. It's very artsy,
Yeah, I think it's also interesting that it's like they've got 2 pairs of separated things from like a greater set that just never materialized. I wonder if that affects its rating, but like,
yeah,
because like I want to see what that looks like complete now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I think these statues are really beautiful, right? I mean, they're really great works of art. You can see just between the one behind Follinger and these ones that are in front of the library. I mean, just like the detail on things like hair, like skin, like joints, muscles. These are incredibly well made.
Yeah, I honestly kind of like that. I feel like that gives it somewhat of a charm. It's like, oh, this is like part of an unfinished collection. It's kind of like a cool aura around it, if you do know about that. Now, obviously, the finished collection may have been cooler, but I'm thinking at least an A tier for these.
I'm thinking A tier, yeah, okay. Absolutely.
All right. So those are,
some pretty, well worth it statues to see if you're on campus.
Definitely. And these are, although we didn't touch on the location that much, but it is a very prominent location for those of you who, are going to school here. That these are things you encounter pretty often.
You can get between Alma Mater, the Diana statue, or the fountain, these Fountain of Creation statues.
They're all very close by. Yeah, they're all very close by.
You get there.
All right, so next we have the Gallaudet Memorial, which we actually walked up coming up to this room. It's in the main library, and it's once again not an original or completed. It's a plaster model of a statue, which is at Gallaudet University. Am I saying that right? You're French Canadian, or partially?
I'm pretty sure that checks out. That checks out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like this one. It depicts a man and a little girl who I think is like, he's a teacher and she's a student, and it's supposed to represent the teaching of the deaf, because Gallaudet, if you don't know, is a university for the deaf in Washington, D.C., I believe. Oh, wait, no, it's in Hartford, Connecticut. Never mind. I was lying.
Same thing.
And this is, so the message of it is pretty like positive in terms of like, teaching people with disabilities and like, and spreading education to like a wide audience, which I think is cool. There's a plaque from the Illinois Association of the Deaf and the Gallaudet University Alumni Association nearby. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have more to add about this?
I mean, I think it's a really interesting, good-looking statue. It's weird that it's probably not in the Gallaudet University.
Well, there is one like this very centrally in the Gallaudet University.
never
This is
mind.
the plaster model of it, which I don't know exactly how statue making works, but I guess they can they have a plaster model pretty easily, and then they, so it's like identical to that statue.
I mean, I think it's good. It shows cooperation. It shows inclusivity. It shows the continuing advancement that we have towards trying to educate people who are, differently abled. As somebody who also suffers from a disability that makes it hard to get around sometimes, I can appreciate that message, and I hope our university does better at, accommodating those students.
Yeah, I agree. The only minor criticism or controversy I have is, and I didn't research this more, is that apparently the creator of the statue sculptor was not deaf, and there was some controversy around that. I didn't look into that super heavily, so I'm not going to let that degrade it too much because I don't know too much about it, but that is just something to mention. All right, where are you thinking for this one?
Somewhere between A and B, I think, because I do think it's really good. I think one thing that does dock it a little bit is that it's a copy.
That's true.
And two, I just feel like it could have a better location than behind some iron bars at the library.
Yeah, I agree. I think.
No, honestly, that might make it B or C. Wow.
Yeah, I would probably go B because I think I like the message. I think it looks pretty good. I think the picture doesn't totally even do it justice. I think it looks better in person.
Yeah, I agree.
But I agree the location. I mean, the location inside the library is kind of cool. We'll get to one more inside the library. I think it's the last one on this list, which doesn't have quite as good of a message in my opinion. But I think that it's generally. I don't know. I generally like it, but I would probably go B personally. I wouldn't put it that high just because of what you outlined.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
So up next we got.
All right. Up next we got the Gelvin Garden statues. I think these are probably slightly obscure. At least I didn't know about them for a while, but I think they're pretty fun personally. Justin, you want to give us a walk down of what the different statues here of the Gelvin Garden are?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got front and center cops cleaning up, which is two figures of what we can assume are policemen holding a broom and shovel just cleaning up a bunch of pennies. And the policemen are cartoony looking and fun.
Yeah.
We've got feet. A couple feet. It looks like you could use those for benches or a fun date idea. I'm not gonna judge. And then you've got the cat with woman, which is a interesting looking feline friend wearing a hat, talking to a little lady.
Yeah, and they're all kind of goofy looking a little bit. In terms of the message of them, there isn't anything explicitly documented about what the message is supposed to be. Obviously, the cops, you could try to read some political themes into that. They're cleaning up pennies. I don't really know what it means. I tried to look into it, and the author had, weird as hell, history in terms of, his messages and statues. So I'm just, going to try not to read into it too much, honestly, because you could take an anti or pro-police message if you really just tried to think about it. Mm-hmm. I think that the cool thing about this is that the statues are, kind of interactive. And you can sit on the feet. You can the cat with woman is on a bench, so you can sit by it, which I think is cool. And I think overall, I don't know. I think it's a very fun set of statues.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's also got the perfect spot, honestly, right by the art museum. It's a perfect place to just chill out and have a little fun,
Okay. All right, so for Gelvin Gardens, where are you thinking we rank this? I just have a little thing.
I want it to be S, in my heart, but I feel realistically it's got to be A.
I think if we're going to stick to our criteria, its significance and location is pretty low. So even if the other two are maxed out, and I don't think political message would be maxed out, I don't think it can go above A. I agree with you.
I don't think it can go above A, but I think it deserves an A.
Yes, I agree. I'm going to drink some water real quick.
So what's our next statue?
I believe our next one is Granger Bob. Now, this is also a very iconic statue.
Yeah, everybody knows Granger Bob.
It's technically not called Granger Bob. The actual name of the statue is Computing the Future, which you can see that's the name of the book Bob is reading here. Justin, what do you like about Granger Bob?
What do I like about Granger Bob? I mean, other than like, I've really loved like all of the sort of
The memes.
yeah, the memes and all of like the campaigns that'll like take pictures with Granger Bob. That's a fun part of the election cycle, I think.
That is true. That does happen pretty often.
Other than that, I mean, really, compared to the use of other statues, the use of color and just like how good the color looks, like the blue on the jacket, the white on the pants, the texture of the socks. I mean, it all looks really good. It looks really well done.
Yeah, Granger Bob is fun because it's just a guy sitting on a bench and reading a book. And if you like are far enough away and you don't know it's a statue, you will think it's I have like the first time I saw it, I thought it was a real person.
Yeah.
Like the first few times, even.
You might think it's just a guy.
Which is pretty fun. And I think it's like a cool idea for a statue. I think that like kind of gives it some points. The only like political thing about it is kind of like in contrast to like who it could be representing or other statues, which we'll get into a little bit later. Because it's obviously, I mean, it seems to just be representing some white dude probably. But I don't know. I think it's like a pretty cool statue, pretty iconic in a central location. And I think that, yeah, I think that will earn it a pretty high rating personally.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking like an A probably.
Yeah, I'll go A tier. I agree. I think it's A tier.
Could you see it being S or D?
I could see it being S. Why don't we? Yeah, I don't know. I think let's leave it with A for now. We can always come back and change it if we don't have any other things in S tier. I think we'll have some other things to fill out S tier.
I think so too. But
I think it's pretty good.
Oh, absolutely. It's beautiful.
All right. So next up we got Mr. Edwards.
Wow.
So this is probably the funniest one on here, and many of you might not know about this because it isn't actually on campus.
Isn't it in downtown? It's kind of close to the train station.
It's in downtown Champaign, yeah. And it's basically looks just like a Humpty Dumpty kind of egg person wearing a suit, a blue suit. I don't know how else to describe it. It has a little top hat on too, and he's giving us a very mischievous look.
Yeah, he's got a mischievous grin, a little bit of a peeping,
Yeah, he's like has his eyebrows going all like this,
he's
and he's
a little mischievous.
Yeah, definitely. And others have been inspired by his mischievousness to vandalize him, apparently, and he had to be cleaned up. But he's looking pretty clean these days, from my understanding. I don't know if that was in 2018 that I found an article about that. I couldn't find that much else about him, other than apparently he's controversial enough or hated enough by some people to be vandalized. But I think it's just pretty funny, honestly.
I mean, he's a funny looking dapper dude, what I mean?
And he's also like sitting on like a bench kind of area where you can sit at, so it's kind of like more interactive, which I think is fun. You can like take a photo with him. I don't know. I don't know where to rank him because he's just so silly. And his location isn't on campus, which doesn't necessarily have to take away points. It's still in like a very prominent location.
Yeah, I think B or C honestly is probably the best place for him, just because like he's not on campus and like he's just fun.
Yeah, I'll go with B. I don't want to hate on Mr. Edward too much.
No hate to Mr. Edwards. We're not doing that vandalism.
Yes, exactly.
Yet.
All right, so. Next, we're going to go through a few different Lincoln statues. There's actually a third Lincoln statue, which I didn't include, the one by the Alumni Center. But that's okay. We'll start with the Lincoln bust in Lincoln Hall. And, there's one feature in this guy that really sticks out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, people love rubbing that nose for good luck, you know what I mean?
Yes, it's a tradition. I personally did not do it when I went on a tour here. They were like, oh, you can rub the nose for good luck. And I'm like, I don't believe in all that. 18-year-old me or 17-year-old me, I don't even know, was like, enough of that mumbo jumbo. I'm gonna be lucky, and I'm gonna do great without rubbing this guy's nose.
Yeah.
How's but that is.
Out for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not too bad. I think it turned out pretty well. Yeah. And then the pandemic hit right after that. So actually, yeah, I think so. Honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
So.
You
but
think they put a mask on him over the pandemic?
I'm sure at some point they had to do a photo op with him on a mask on.
I hope so.
I would have to imagine. Yeah. It's very iconic. It was placed in Lincoln Hall in 1928. They wanted it to resemble Gutzon Berglund's sculpture in the U.S. Capitol building. They asked Laredo Taft to make it actually, and he said, "Nah, I don't like it. I'm not going to do that." And so one of Taft's sculptor friends did it instead, apparently. My hot take: Lincoln bust overrated.
Okay, even if it's a hot take, I agree with you. Like, I mean, looking at it here, we have like the resolution and the detail that maybe help it, but honestly, like, its detailing is just weak.
Well, also the fact that it's supposed to resemble another statue means it's just not that creative of a piece of art.
And it doesn't look good.
And it looks okay.
It looks kind of melted. I don't know how else to describe it. It looks like a little like wide and a little like misshapen.
Yeah, and I think like it's obviously very significant and important. The message behind it, I mean, it's just Lincoln, you know. I mean, that's not like anything.
It's the most Illinois thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, like Lincoln, you know, I'm happy we're celebrating. It's better, you know. There's worse people we could be celebrating. Yeah. I'm sorry that the camera is so.
I don't know, like it's like whoa.
For the people watching this video, they might be very confused what is going on, and you know, so are we. What the hell? So are we.
I mean, you agree with one hot take, and then they're just like zooming in on you.
Yeah, like whenever I move my hands around,
it's crazy.
I'll have to cut some of those things out. But
anyway, I feel like we can't rank it F tier because I mean it's iconic, but if it wasn't iconic, it'd be there. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna put it in C tier personally.
I agree with you.
Just because I don't think it deserves the hype, frankly. Now on the other hand, we got another Lincoln statue, Lincoln the lawyer, which I think is underrated. And this one actually was made by Laredo Taft. He was like, you know what? I don't like this other Lincoln. I'm gonna do this cool Lincoln. And it's supposed to show Lincoln as a lawyer, like he was in Urbana at some points as a lawyer, and showed different interpretation than just the martyred president, you know, which is kind of how a lot of Lincoln art and I think depictions are, right? This is like a kind of different take on him, which I think is interesting. It's not like that politically revolutionary or cool necessarily, but I think it's kind of like, I think the message is at least more interesting than most Lincoln sculptures, which are just like, this is Abraham Lincoln.
It's also beautifully done. I mean, like the patina and everything on it. It's got that beautiful blue-green color. The detail looks incredible on like the appearance of silk with the coat and the pants.
I really think that the thing I really like about it is that it captures the fact that Lincoln was like a big dude. Like he was tall as hell. Now I think the statue is, you know, larger than life, but it kind of just like has like a very like large presence. And he's wearing like a, you know, 3-piece suit with a bow tie. He's just kind of standing back, chilling, but also kind of like somewhat intimidating, standing on a pedestal. Like, I don't know. I just really like this one. And personally, this is S tier for me. We didn't mention the location. It's in Carl Park, which is a really pretty park in Urbana.
You should totally go.
So
I don't think it can be S tier because it's there. You know what
I
mean?
Why is that?
It's not on campus. It's not
but
on campus.
I want it to be S tier. We don't have anything else in S tier right now.
Something is about to be in S tier, let me tell you.
Okay. I mean, that's true. There are other things that can go there. There are other things that I think that...
I'm willing to put it in S tier, but I think it has to
I'll give you next thing you disagree with me on, we'll give it to you, okay? Okay.
That's easy. The Mammoth's in S tier.
Well, I agree with you on that, so you don't need to...
Yeah, we don't even have to worry about it, but...
Getting ahead of ourselves here. We can talk a little bit about the Mammoth. It's a mammoth. I think I don't know how else to describe its physical appearance.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, like, what was it? Like, sometime about a year and a half ago?
It's about a year ago, yeah.
Put this right in front of the Natural History Building, which, you know, is really cool, really centrally located, honestly. And a lot of people have taken to it and loved it, you know? This is our campus mammoth.
Yes.
They've actually, like, made it look better since this picture was taken.
This picture is not actually the best picture. I just thought it was kind of a funny look at it because it's looking at it from the front, which is not normally how I see it. But the Mammoth is cool. It's located pretty centrally, like right by the quad. It's the message of it is just the like representing like the study of geology and biology and science and stuff. And there were actually mammoths back in the day in Illinois. Is like kind of a reason why they picked a mammoth. It's like the coolest animal basically that existed in that Illinois at the time that would be the most like presentable in a statue. So honestly, I think it's pretty sick. You can't climb it. The only downside, you're not supposed to climb it, and it would be kind of hard to climb. But I don't know. I'm down for Mammoth S tier.
I mean, it has to be. It makes me want to watch Ice Age every time I walk by.
Yeah, that's true actually. The U of I has generated lots of more revenue for the creators of Ice Age by placing this statue here.
Absolutely.
All right. So next we got something that was actually a late addition. I wasn't originally going to include it. But then we actually walked by after working out, and we were like, "Hey,
subtle flex, but okay."
Yeah, we were hitting the gym, you know. Yeah. We were going to the Ark, and we're walking back, and we saw this Justice and Liberty, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta include this." It is more abstract than the other ones on this. It doesn't depict like a literal person as precisely, but it is still depicting a person, and
it's
I think
just a figure holding justice and liberty, and justice and liberty are just a couple of balls, you know.
Yep. Apparently. So
you know, the more you know.
So yeah, it's like a very tall, slender, silver figure holding these two, you know,
really ornate,
circular.
honestly.
Ornate, you said?
Yeah, look at the detailing on
there's a lot of really cool detail on it. I think it looks pretty sick, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's standing on this pedestal that has a Lincoln quote on it. Once again, we're really the Lincoln loving is pretty prominent here on campus. And this quote says, let reverence for the laws be taught in schools, in seminaries, and in colleges," which is kind of a lame Lincoln quote, I'm not going to lie. He's just saying, like, follow the law no matter what. I looked at like the passage this comes from, and he's like, "Well, yes, sometimes laws are unjust, but you should follow them anyway." Which I'm just like, that's like just not a very. I just don't agree with that take. I'm sorry,
it's
Lincoln.
just not that. I mean, the amount of people that would still be oppressed today.
I mean, he was saying this while slavery was legal to be right. Like, obviously, he was the part of the movement that abolished slavery, but I still think it's a bad take. Sorry, Abe, and that does take it down a few points for me.
And its location also.
Yeah, location. It's by the law school, which makes sense as a location. But
I'm feeling a beat here.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get the camera to move back to you. Yeah. So with that in mind, I think that I like the statue appearance-wise, but on the other two, it does score kind of low.
C tier?
Yeah, I'm okay with just putting it in C,
okay
honestly. Because also, like, it's cool to look at, but it's not, like, jaw-dropping or anything, you know? It's not, like, amazing. So far, we haven't put anything in F tier, which, is a good sign.
Yeah, we're not
maybe we will, but we'll
still
see.
got time.
All right. So next up, we have an interesting one, which arguably maybe shouldn't count as a statue, but I was just like, screw it, I'm going to put it in here. And that is pineapples.
F.
Yeah, it might go in F tier. Honestly, I'm going to explain. I know some people like the Fullinger pineapples. Okay, maybe I should explain what's going on here, especially if you're an audio listener. You probably have no idea what the hell we're talking about. So basically, there's a few locations on campus. There might be more than these two, but there's these two specifically that I have photos up on the video and that I've looked into a little bit. Basically, Harker Hall has a fountain, and which has a little pineapple on top of it. And Fullinger, the big auditorium, has a pineapple on the top of it also. And the message behind this, like at first glance, is just like hospitality and welcoming. But the reason for that is because of like, and this is like stated by a university website. I'm not like making this up. I'm not but is that European imperialists brought pineapples back from the Caribbean, and it became a luxury item for the wealthy, and then it evolved into a symbol of hospitality and welcome. Not exactly sure how to connect the dots here. Maybe like I think rich people were like, "Oh, we're so swag, we have a pineapple. Isn't that like so hospitable?" And that just doesn't really vibe that like well with me. Like that's just like not that like that's not like that cool. Like I like pineapples, but like
I'm surprised it had nothing to do with the Dole Fruit Company in Hawaii. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of does. I mean, it's about colonialism and stuff.
Sponsor gift right there. You know what I mean?
So, all the corporate sponsors the university has. It's surprising that they didn't.
Exactly.
The pineapples weren't sponsored as well. But I'm honestly fine with F tier. We need an F tier.
You wouldn't even know, like with the thing about Fullinger, you wouldn't even know, right?
Yeah, I know some people are like
statue. It's cute, but
at best, it's like a cute little piece of lore that some people know and then forget about instantly.
Yeah.
And at worst, it's like just kind of like a symbol of colonialism. So
yeah,
I think F tier is appropriate.
SpongeBob's house belongs in the water. That's all I'm saying.
Good point. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So next we have the thing I mentioned earlier, quintessential engineer, also known as Quinn. So this is a statue celebrating women in engineering. It was added in 2017. And it seems kind of like a counterpoint to Granger Bob. It was like somewhat influenced by the fact that there's a Granger Bob statue, but there's not a Granger Quinn. I guess I was gonna say Quinn is like kind of like considered. It's considered a gender neutral name. So saying that, but I mean, there's no there wasn't any, female engineering representation in the form of a statue. So this is kind of aiming to change that. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the cool hexagonal bases with just different adjectives to describe them is cool. And the statue's really well done.
Yeah, it's described. Itself described as a face, an expression of wonder, exploration, and knowledge, one of curiosity and perseverance. She represents a multiracial female, a young professional woman at work, always thinking, on the move. And the base represents has things like pioneering, innovative, resilient, passionate, and then it says like it represents like DNA, honeycombs. They're like these hexagonal shapes, and other things that are like snowflakes and carbon and other like scientific concepts that have a relationship to hexagons.
And it's absolutely in the appropriate place too.
Yes, it's really, on the engineering quad.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is pretty sick. Honestly, the only like small thing I don't like about it is just a design thing that I think that like the color of the hexagons and the color of the statue is like slightly off.
Yes, and the font.
That's true. The font is not very good.
Using, the
statue itself, I think, is perfect.
Yeah,
honestly.
The statue.
But the
like
base,
perfect,
I think, the design of the base is like not my favorite.
Used a little work, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking A or B, just because like it is good, and there's just like those few things that would just push it straight over the edge.
I think we should put it A tier because it'd be kind of sexist to rank it below Granger Bob. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
So yeah, I think we should go for A. I think that's appropriate.
It's definitely worth it. I just like now that I'm looking at it, I wish they would have put more effort into the base with like they could have like carved the words in instead of just like laser.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they might be. I don't know. It doesn't look. Yeah, I agree. I think the statue itself, the message is great. The location is great. The statue is like almost perfect.
Yeah,
like,
it's
but
really
it's
close,
just like
it's really good.
The base is like a fairly big part of it, so I definitely can't give it the S.
Yeah.
Okay. So next we have the statue of Reuben G. Soderstrom, who you probably don't know who the hell that is, but you might have seen it if you're associated with it all, the Labor and Employment Relations Department of U of I or college. And basically it's behind the Labor and Employment Relations building. It's a big statue of a dude with a gavel, and he's kind of like pointing upwards.
Yeah.
And wearing like a, three-piece suit. I guess a lot of these statues have that going for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's honestly a really well done statue. It really like gets the expression and like emotion of the person really well. This guy's just like, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says on the statue that he was the president of the Illinois AFL-CIO from 1930 to 1970, which that's pretty long. It says 40 gavels, which I think means that he chaired 40 like conventions of the Illinois AFL-CIO. Yeah. Or something like that. And yeah, he has kind of a cool story. They have like a little life story. I think some of it is nearby this area, which says that at the age of 10 he worked for a blacksmith. So some child labor going on, and then he was just like working like horrible jobs for like many years of his life, and then eventually like moved up in the labor movement and became a representative in the Illinois legislature. So, overall, I think it's a really cool political message of like supporting labor, honoring a figure in the Illinois labor movement, and I like it a lot for that. I think it looks pretty cool. The location, I will take it down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I love the Labor and Employment Relations building, nothing wrong with that, but there's a giant parking lot behind it, which is just like the least scenic possible thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know, that's one thing that like doesn't really go perfectly. But yeah, what are you thinking for this?
I'm thinking B just because of the location, honestly.
Yeah,
it's a good statue overall. It's really solid, maybe if a bit basic.
That's true. I think I'm okay with B.
Its biggest problem is the location. At least it's not by a road, but the parking lot does kill it.
Yeah, the parking lot, and it's just like also not very visible easily. Like you have to like kind of go and look for it.
It's kind of by
or just be chilling by the Labor and Employment Relations building already. So I think that takes it down to a B, even though the other categories are pretty solid.
Yeah, it's pretty strong overall, I'd say.
Okay, so the next one, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to mention about this that I like, which doesn't really actually give it points as a statue, but the like ground around it has like names of like different like members of the labor movement or like people from different organizations on it, which I thought was pretty cool. And I just like spent some time like when I was taking this photo looking at that and seeing like all the different, you know, different people who have, I assume they've maybe contributed in some way to the statue or just being honored in some way, which I just thought was cool.
Absolutely. All right.
And
Well,
we'll cut that out.
yeah, we'll fix it best.
So next we have structural mechanics.
Isn't this statue beautiful?
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just like it's an outer work of bronze looking at like a human hand, and it kind of just gets deconstructed into the silver, like almost bone-esque structure.
Yes.
That becomes flattened out and more two-dimensional as it goes along, and it's certainly a looker.
Yeah, it's by the medical building, and it basically depicts the anatomy of a hand, part of it from the outside and part of it from the inside. I think it's a really cool looking sculpture. So it was originally at a corporate headquarters, but then they moved it to the University of Illinois after that place shut down, which I think is a cool kind of reappropriation and taking of it for like the more public service. And yeah, I think it's just like a very cool statue. It's well placed. It's like you'll see it walking through campus, but it's not like gonna, you know, be in your face all the time like Alma or something like that.
I'm thinking A tier.
I'm thinking A tier too. There's not really anything too much to hate on this for.
Yeah,
And
I think it'd be really hard to hate on it. It's got a lot of good detail. I feel like the only thing that makes it not S tier is just the location, and it's a little simple, you know?
I agree.
It's good.
All right. So last but not, well, actually maybe least, we'll see, is the Pioneers. So this is another Laredo Taft statue. It's also a plaster model, so it's not the actual original statue of a sculpture in Elmwood, Illinois from 1928. Elmwood, Illinois is his hometown, and so it was created as a gift for his hometown. Justin, would you maybe describe the statue a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, sure. It looks like a frontier or pioneer young family with a woman, child, man, and dog just looking out towards the distance.
Yes. And there's a little paper by the statue that describes it, and it says, "The man with his dog and gun is symbolic of his readiness to defend his home and family. The young mother, clasping the child in her arms, shows the consciousness of lurking dangers that so tests her courage." And then there's a caption of the statue which says, "To the pioneers who bridged the streams, subdued the soil, and founded a state." So I'm not a big fan of the message of this statue. I think it's just kind of like, seems to just be like, wow, we love settler colonialism.
I've got a hot take too. I think it's ugly. I can tell, like, you can just, like, looking at it, you can sort of just tell that it came from a mold just because, like,
That's
just,
true. It's
like,
not.
the
It doesn't have the
detail,
detail. It doesn't have the detail of Taft's other statues.
It's ridiculously smooth and just like it's bland.
Yeah, I think it looks okay. Like when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, this looks fine."
Yeah.
And then I read it, and I'm like, "Oh, that's like a little like weird." And I just kind of
And now it's got this ugly bar, and they're looking at a fucking wall.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're just looking at a wall, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I think I'm honestly good at the F tier. It has a bad message. It's just kind of like, oh, we settled this place and we, you know, white people are just, you know, subdued the soil, which just sounds kind of fashy.
Sounds wrong.
Just sounds kind of fascist.
Sounds wrong. You know, like it. Yeah, no, this statue's an F tier. Easy.
Yeah. So that is our final statue.
Those are our power rankings. Wow.
And you know, this didn't. Oops. Oh.
Well.
Oh.
Well. Gonna have to cut that one.
It didn't take too long to go through all these.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the UIUC statues tier list. You know, it was a pretty cool tier list, I think. We, you know, went through all these 19 statues, and the top 3, we got Alma Mater, we got the Mammoth, and we got the Lincoln and the Carl Park.
Yeah, Lincoln.
Bottom 2, we got a Pineapple and the Pioneers. And I think that's an overall pretty good list. As you can see, they're mostly in the A and B tiers. Like, these are pretty solid statues on our campus.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are some stinkers, and there are some just kind of mid statues on here too. Overall, I think we have a good artistic landscape here on campus, but there could be some improvements made,
absolutely,
for sure. So
get rid of the Pioneer statue. You got yourself a winner.
Yeah, rename it to, I don't know. There's no way to salvage the message of it, I don't think. So, yeah, that's it for this episode of the Learning Labor Podcast. Thank you so much for listening and or watching, depending on how you are
consuming
this content. I don't know if I like to put it like that, but do you have anything else to leave folks with?
Thanks so much for having me, and go look at some beautiful statues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learning and labor. Station WILL has carried a special program this week giving information about the University of Illinois. If you have been a listener to these broadcasts, you have heard more or less about what the university does, how it does it, and what it hopes to do. Thank you, Dr. Willard.